On the day I gave birth, the midwife who was attending to me secretly swapped the baby for her own daughter. But I didn't call him out on it. In my previous life, I caught the midwife who had switched my baby on the spot. And I raised my daughter with the utmost care and affection. But on the very day she became empress, she issued an imperial edict demoting me to the status of a concubine and bringing my husband's cousin into the palace as his principal wife. It was only then that I realized my child had been poisoned by his father while still in the womb and had been dead from the moment he was born. And the daughter I had raised with such care turned out to be the child of my husband and his cousin. I was abandoned in the backyard, left to fend for myself, and died of illness on a cold night. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of the birth. This time, I turned a blind eye to the midwife's actions. It wasn't my child, after all, so I couldn't be bothered to get involved. 16 years later, a girl dressed in rags came to the house to claim kinship. Looking at her face, which bore a striking resemblance to my husband's, I smiled faintly. Since you've come to claim kinship, I'll send all three of you to meet in the afterlife. Main text. When I opened my eyes again, Xiuhe, the midwife who had been tending to me, was quietly swapping the babies in their swaddling clothes. She hesitated for a moment, but finally took off the silver bracelet she had set aside for her own daughter. Xiaodi, please don't be mad at your mother. Now that you'll be living the high life with this family, you won't need a silver bracelet. Save this one for your future little brother. I waited for her to fuss around for quite a while until she finally switched the babies, and only then did I slowly come to. Looking at the baby in my arms, I feigned surprise and said, "Oh my, Xiuhe." I just dozed off for a moment, and now this kid has turned all dark and ugly. Xiuhe flinched slightly at my words and quickly turned away to shield the child in her arms. You're joking, madam. Children grow like weeds. The young lady looks like she's got a strong constitution and will be easy to raise. Seeing her racking her brain to come up with that line, I didn't feel like teasing her anymore. Xiuhe has indeed given birth before. She has much more experience than I do. Since that's the case, you should stay here at the mansion to serve us. That way, your daughter can keep my child company in the future. After all, she had just given birth. How could she possibly bear to part with her child? Upon hearing such a solution that satisfied everyone, Xiuhe immediately knelt down to express her gratitude, forgetting even to cover the face of the child in her arms. The fair-skinned, adorable child in her arms smiled sweetly at might was none other than Xiangxue, the daughter I had doted on for 18 years in my previous life, yet my heart remained completely unmoved. What a pity. Xiangxue, you'll have to spend the rest of your life toiling alongside a peasant woman. You can forget about ever ascending to the throne as empress. As for your own mother, Su Qingning, she can just spend the rest of her life as that shameful mistress. I decided to keep Xiuhe here first, to prevent any mishaps from occurring while Xiangxue was out of my sight, and second, because Xiuhe and her daughter were the ones who killed me in my previous life. In my previous life, I immediately saw through Xiuhe's attempt to switch the babies and took my own child back. Xiuhe knelt at my feet, weeping as she told me how her good-for-nothing husband spent his time drinking, gambling, and visiting brothels, and how he beat her whenever he lost at gambling. She said she had no choice but to make this decision because she simply didn't want her child to have to live such a miserable life with her. I saw that she was covered in wounds. As a new mother, she wanted to bring good fortune to her child. So not only did I not blame her, but I also gave her a gold ingot so she could take her daughter back home. Later, Xiangxue became empress, and she demoted me to the status of a concubine, while I was locked up in the backyard, waiting to die. A mother and daughter sneaked into the backyard. It was Xiuhe and her daughter. When I realized the person approaching was Xiuhe, I thought I'd finally found a glimmer of hope, because back then, not only did I not hold it against her, but I also gave her money to support her daughter. But redemption was not what awaited me. After Xiuhe found me, she pulled out a whip and viciously lashed me. Do you see now, Xiaodi? It was she who stood in your way back then, preventing you from becoming the eldest daughter of the Xie family. Otherwise, you would be the one sitting in the seat of honor today. Xiaodi grabbed me by the neck and slapped me hard several times. You worthless woman. You ruined things between my daughter and me. I hear the one in the empress's seat isn't even your biological daughter either. That's what you get for what you've done. I lay on the ground and coughed up a few mouthfuls of fresh blood. Then, clutching Shioha's collar, said with a sense of resentment, I didn't blame you back then. I even gave you money. Even if only for the sake of that ingot of silver. You shouldn't have humiliated me like this. Shioha kicked me, sending me flying. Then grabbed me by the hair and slammed my head against the wall. How dare you bring up that ingot of gold again? It was because of that ingot that I was brutally beaten by my drunken husband when I got home. He took the ingot to gamble, and when he lost, he made me go find another one. Where am I supposed to find any ingots? He beat me all night long before he finally stopped. It's fine as long as you don't bring up the ingots. But the moment you do, it really gets my blood boiling. When I stopped them from swapping the children, they saw it as me stealing their opportunity. When I gave them money, they didn't blame their husbands for taking it, but instead blamed me. It's my own fault for having read so many books yet at the crucial moment. I forgot the story of Mr. Dongwa and the wolf. I knew there was no point in saying anything more, so I simply stopped trying to reason with them, afraid that they might beat me to death. They vented their anger and then hurriedly left. Actually, they have nothing to fear. No one has come to the backyard for months, and I've been merely scraping by on wild grass. That very night, I died a miserable death in the cold night air from my severe injuries, and it wasn't until spring that my body was tossed onto the mass grave, wrapped in a tattered mat. Thinking of Shioha's husband, a man with every vice imaginable, I came up with a plan and asked her, in a calm and unhurried tone, if there was anyone else at home. Shioha didn't understand why. She thought it was only natural for a wealthy family to be cautious when hiring a servant and to inquire about his family background. My parents passed away when I was young, and my eldest uncle sold me to a fellow villager as a child bride. Now, aside from my daughter, the only other person in my household is my husband. Hulu. It's better to ask about certain things right away, just in case I miss something and someone comes after me later to settle the score. I thought of my cousin Su Qingning, who had married into the Dou family alongside Xia Yingxian, and raised my hand to assign Hu Liuji Shioha's husband to her as a servant. Shioha, unaware of my plan, quickly knelt down in tears to express her gratitude, thanking me for reuniting her family. During that time, she glanced at the child in my arms several times, hesitating each time, but in the end, she didn't tell me the truth. That's for the best that way. If I ever decide to get even, she won't have any idea why. It wasn't until after I sent Shioha away that I hugged my blanket and cried my heart out. I carried him for 10 months. But my long-awaited child lost his life before he could even see his mother's face. I never imagined it would be his own father who took his life. It's so sad that I don't even know where my child is buried. Xia Yingxian. Xia Yingxian. You really deserve to die. Thinking of my child who was never given the chance to live, I sent Xia Yingxian a vial of a potion to prevent conception that very night. Su Qingning had also just given birth, and at the moment, Xia Yingxian was staying in the outer courtyard to look after her, under the pretext of preparing for next year's spring imperial examinations. Although his writing was utter nonsense and he failed the imperial examinations time and again, as his wife, I still often comforted him, telling him that his talent had simply not yet been recognized and that one day he would surely find a patron who appreciated him. I also brewed him nourishing tea every day, never missing a day even while I was pregnant. That is why he didn't suspect for a moment the bowl of health tea I had given him, and drank the tea which had been laced with a fertility-killing poison without hesitation. In my previous life, after giving birth to a daughter, I took fertility medication for many years, but in the end, I was unable to have any more children. At the time, I simply assumed that my body had been weakened by complications during childbirth, and Xia Yingxian reassured me many times about this, which is why I was finally able to let go of my worries. It wasn't until Xia Yingxue became the secondary consort and Su Qingning was elevated to the position of principal wife that Xia Yingxuanho had been unable to father a child for many years actually managed to have Su Qingning, in her advanced years, give birth to another son. When I heard that Xia Yingxian was hosting a full moon banquet for his son in the front courtyard, I bit my fingernails until they broke. hating myself for being so blind all those years that I couldn't see the people right beside me. It was only then that I realized the fetal poison Xiangshan had inflicted on me had not only killed my child but also damaged my body, which is why I could never conceive again. Not only did you harm my child, but you also ruined my health. Consider this vial of sterility potion as interest. I'll collect the rest from you little by little. After the maid on errand told me that Xiangshan had drunk every last drop of that health tea, I ordered someone to toss the dregs of the infertility potion under the flowering tree in Su Jingning's courtyard so that when the truth eventually came out, they could turn on each other. Once matters here were settled, I sent word that very night for a letter to be delivered to the wife of the prefect of Qingzhou, along with a precious tourmaline and coral ornament and a promissory note for 200,000 taels of silver. The wife of the prefect of Qingzhou was the half-sister of Her Imperial Highness the noble consort, who was the biological mother of the third prince, the one whom everyone had held in high regard in her previous life. With the consort Shu's birthday fast approaching, the prefect's wife is unable to come up with a decent gift to celebrate the occasion. This was all because the prefect of Qingzhou was an honest and upright official who could not bring himself to take even the slightest bit of the people's hard-earned money. As a result, Qingzhou enjoyed good governance and social harmony. Yet the prefect himself was so poor that he could only wear a patched official robe. The 200,000 taels in silver notes and the coral ornament I sent came just in time to relieve the prefect's wife's urgent need. And all I ask is that she mention me briefly when celebrating the consort Shu's birthday. With the imperial harem currently without a ruler following the early death of the crown prince, anyone with eyes can see that the throne will inevitably go to either the second prince or the third prince. He second prince lacked ability but was ruthless, simply because the grand tutor had criticized his schoolwork. The young prince poisoned the grand tutor's mount, leaving this veteran statesman who had served 3 reigns bedridden for the rest of his life. In his previous life, while the third prince was away providing disaster relief, he bribed one of the emperor's personal attendants to poison the emperor. He then forged an imperial edict to seize the throne and force the noble consort to commit suicide as a sacrificial offering. By the time the third prince returned to the capital, the outcome had already been decided, and this much-praised virtuous prince was forced to take poison and end his own life, meeting a fate in which his body was left dismembered. I don't know to what extent Xiangshuan's influence is reflected in the second prince's schemes. All I know is that in 3 months, Xiangshan will use this tourmaline and coral ornament to curry favor with the second prince's maternal uncle. It was precisely this coral ornament that earned him a position of moderate importance, and from then on, he became a trusted ally of the second prince. The struggle for the throne is so treacherous that the slightest misstep can lead to utter ruin. At the time, I didn't agree with Xiangshan getting involved in this matter, but he used the fact that I couldn't bear to part with that precious tourmaline and coral ornament which he intended to use to advance his career to silence me. Since my family, the Dou clan, is one of the wealthiest in Qingzhou, a mere ornament was no big deal to me. But to avoid marital discord, I had no choice but to let the matter drop. At present, the second prince is only 7 years old, and the third prince has just turned 6. If one is to place a bet, it goes without saying that one must act first. Looking back now, rather than using this ornament to pave the way for Xiangshan, I should have used it to pave my own path to success. And the third prince is clearly a good choice. When the prefect's wife's reply arrived a single character, good, written on a large sheet of paper, I knew I had succeeded in this endeavor. Before they knew it, a month had passed. On the day the baby turned 1 month old, Xiangshan racked his brain and finally decided to name the child Xiangxue. In her previous life, Xiangxue had been fair-skinned and cutie, a name that suited her well, but now that this child was dark-skinned and stocky, it was quite amusing that she still went by that name. The real Xiangxue, however, took the name of Xiuhe's daughter and was called Zhaodi. After my postpartum recovery period ended, I began managing the household again. In my previous life, after giving birth, I devoted myself entirely to caring for my child, leaving the entire Dou family estate in Xiangshuan's hands. I have no idea how much of the Dou family's wealth he used to support the second prince, or how much he used to fill Su Qingning's personal coffers. In this lifetime, I absolutely cannot let the family fortune my parents worked so hard to build fall into the hands of strangers. Xia Yingxian had long had his eyes on the Dou family's estate. When he saw that I had resumed managing the family business, he quickly urged me to take some time off, saying it would be fine to leave the Dou family's affairs in his hands. I said this without looking up, as I clicked the abacus and checked the accounts. My lord, you are mistaken. A man should study day and night, poring over his books and pricking his thighs with an awl, striving diligently to achieve academic success and a distinguished career. How could such trivial matters of commerce possibly consume your energy and derail your brilliant future? It's also because Xiang Xuan's character is so well crafted just to spend time with Su Qingning. Even while I was still in my postpartum confinement, he would stay overnight in the study under the pretext of studying. Now that I've advised him to read more and meddle less in the family business, he can't seem to come up with a reason to argue with me right away. As I watched his lonely figure walk away, a sudden urge to kill him welled up inside me. Wanted nothing more than to take his life with my own hands right then and there. In the end, though, I held back, because now was not the right time. After I came of age, my father suddenly fell seriously ill and passed away unexpectedly within just 3 months. According to clan rules, if a family has no sons, all of its property passes to the clan. The Dou family's estate was built up through my father's hard work over half his life. How could I possibly hand it over to someone else? Unfortunately, this is a family tradition, and not even the authorities can interfere. With no other choice, I had no option but to ask the matchmaker to find a suitable match for me. Only by selecting a husband who would marry into my family could my current predicament be resolved. But a true man's ambitions lie far and wide. No one from a family of any standing would be willing to become a son-in-law by marriage. And those who are willing to do so are mostly petty scoundrels drawn by my looks and my family's wealth. Just as I was in dire straits, Xia Yingxian, dressed in simple clothes, came to my door with a marriage proposal. Only then did I realize that my grandfather had actually arranged a marriage for me all those years ago. I had no intention of rushing into marriage, but Xia Yingxuan's words were sincere, and since we were already betrothed and with my clan pressing, I had no choice but to marry him in haste. If I were to kill Xia Yingxian right now, there's no telling whether those old-fashioned clansmen might use the clan rules to seize my family's estate. Oh well, let him scrape by for a few more days. He's nothing more than a grasshopper after autumn. Anyway, after Xiu He was hired as a wet nurse, she took great care of Xia Yingxue. She would have loved to breastfeed Xia Yingxue 10 times a day, but she had left Zhaodi in the woodshed, where the girl was crying until she was nearly out of breath. And only then did she hurriedly force a bowl of rice porridge down her throat. As time went on, Xia Yingwei was already dark-skinned and plump became even darker and stockier under her care, while Zhao Di, who was the same age as Xia Yingxue, was thin and petite, looking just like a little mouse. The servants in the mansion couldn't stand it anymore and would remind her to tend to her own child and breastfeed him, but Su He would snap back at them every time. Who does Zhao Di think she is? A lowly little brat. Does she really think she's worthy of sharing a sip of milk with Miss Yingxue? Feeding her rice porridge is already a favor. If any of you say another word, I'll go tell the lady that you can't stand the fact that I've given Miss Yingxue a few extra sips of milk. After all, it wasn't her own child, so it wasn't worth losing her job over someone else's family affairs. Gradually, no one spoke up for Zhao Di anymore, but you can't keep a secret forever. And just as Xiu He said, children really do grow up fast. Zhao Di grew to look more and more like Xia Yingxian, while Xia Yingxue was dark-skinned and bore no resemblance whatsoever to either Xia Yingxian or Su Qingning. Sparking widespread gossip among the people, these rumors gradually reached Xia Yingxuan's ears. Seeing that Xia Yingxian had been staring blankly at Xia Yingxue and Zhao Di as they played together on several occasions, I knew I had to do something otherwise. This father and daughter might recognize each other before it was time. That day, after Xiu He had finished serving Xia Yingxue her meal and was about to take her leave, I pretended to speak casually. Come to think of it, your daughter Zhao Di does bear a certain resemblance to my husband. I've taken a particular liking to her. Why don't we pick a date the day after tomorrow so I can take her as my adopted daughter? Before I could finish speaking, Xiu He was so frightened that she knelt on the ground. When she heard that I intended to adopt Zhao Di as my adopted daughter, she was so terrified that she repeatedly cowed out, "Madam, You mustn't. My daughter Zhaodi has little fortune. The fortune teller said her fate is fragile and she cannot hold on to good fortune. Look at her, she's almost 2 years old and still so frail. If she were to accept a noble woman like you as her godmother, I fear it would cut short my daughter Zhaodi's life. Xiuhe wailed for ages. But not a single tear fell. I was too lazy to listen to her wailing. So I told her to get up and answer me. I was just saying that off the cuff. If you don't want to, then never mind. But that girl Zhaodi really does look more and more like my husband as she grows up and liking Xiuhe, who I honestly can't tell who she takes after. Seeing that I had given up, Xiuhe didn't bother putting on an act either. She just kept offering kind words. Don't say that. Ma'am. Kids are a little ugly when they're young, they'll grow up to be pretty. Don't be fooled by how pretty Zhaodi looks now. Who knows what she'll look like when she grows up. I couldn't be bothered to fob her off any longer. So I told her to go about her business. I just silently mused to myself that Zhaodi bore a certain resemblance to Xiangxian. Seeing Xiuhe's slightly hesitant steps, I knew she had taken my words to heart. Sure enough, that very night I heard a heart-wrenching scream coming from the backyard. The next day, when I saw Zhaodi's face wrapped in gauze, I realized that last night, Xiuhe had lost her grip on the branding iron, which had accidentally burned Zhaodi's face. I looked away, unable to bear the sight, but inside I was thinking, Xiuhe really is ruthless. After raising it for so long, even a dog would have grown attached, yet she could actually bring herself to do that. After that day, Xiuhe secretly mixed some harmful ingredients into Zhaodi's food. Half a month later, Zhaodi's face was completely scarred, and she no longer had her former delicate beauty. Ever since he regained control of the Dou family business, it had become much more difficult for Xiangxian to obtain money and goods. At this time in his previous life, he would have used that tourmalinianquerel ornament to curry favor with the second prince's maternal uncle, secured an official post, and spend his days scheming and maneuvering in the bureaucratic world. In this lifetime, he once again curried favor with the second prince's maternal uncle, but unfortunately, the gifts he sent were of poor quality, so in the end, he was given only a low-level, unimportant position and never even got to meet the second prince. In this day and age, you can't get anywhere without money. Since he couldn't make any, Su Qingning, who lived in the outer courtyard, didn't benefit either. Finally, after the second prince had once again assigned an important task to someone else, Xiangxian began to figure out how to wrest control of the Dou family's household from me. My informant, whom I had placed close to Xiangxian, returned and told me that Xiangxian and Su Qingning had spent the entire night in deep discussion. They finally decided to drug me, leaving me lying in bed in a daze, unable to move, until Xiangxue came of age and inherited everything belonging to the Dou family, at which point they would administer a lethal dose to end my life. They actually dared to pull off such a petty trick right in front of me, but they did give me something to think about. To preserve the Dou family's legacy, I had no choice but to spare Xiangshuan's wretched life for the time being. Looking back now, it was enough just to have him around, didn't have to come out of it unscathed. After finding out exactly what poison Xiangxian and Su Qingning planned to give me, I arranged for someone to poison Xiangxian first, before he could act. In just 3 days, Xiangxian was lying in bed with one side of his face drooping, as if he had suffered a stroke. Several doctors examined him in quick succession, but none could diagnose his condition. To prevent this family from causing any more trouble and derailing my important plans, I planned to call it a day early and deal with these monsters and demons standing before me. Xiangxian had been bedridden for half a month, taking countless doses of medicine, yet his condition showed no sign of improvement whatsoever, which deeply worried Su Qingning, whom he kept in the outer courtyard. After all, Su Qingning was technically her cousin, and her monthly allowance from the family funds was fixed. Her usual extravagant spending was covered by Xiangxian. Right now, Xiangxian is bedridden and unable to get up, so with her source of income gone, she's really worried. At that point, she no longer cared about avoiding the appearance of impropriety. Accompanied by the renowned physician she'd invited from outside the city, she rushed straight into our inner courtyard. I told the servants not to stop her, the outcome would be the same either way. Seeing that the firing was nearly complete, I left the city that very night to invite Master Suqing, who was traveling in Qingzhou. Master Suqing was not only a master of Buddhist teachings, but also a medical genius. In his early years, when Your Majesty fell from his horse and lay unconscious for 3 days, Master Suqing cured him with a single acupuncture needle. What Xia Yingxian didn't know, however, was that my father had once done Master Suqing a favor. So asking him for a small favor was, of course, no problem at all. I was gone for 3 days, and during those 3 days, Su Qingning clung to Xia Yingxian as if no one else were around, squeezing quite a bit of pocket money out of him. When he saw me come home looking disheveled from my long journey, the first thing out of his mouth was a barrage of sarcasm. My cousin is seriously ill, yet you, as his wife, aren't by his side to take care of him. Where have you been all this time? I bet you just thought taking care of a sick person was too much trouble and decided to shirk your duties. I haven't been at home these past few days, and Xia Yingxian had already been somewhat critical of me. After hearing what Su Qingning said, he grew even colder toward me. The maid behind me immediately spoke up to explain on my behalf. Miss Biao has misunderstood my wife. Upon hearing that Master Suqing was traveling through Qingzhou, she hurried to pay him a visit and knelt at his doorstep for 3 days before she finally moved him to come and examine my husband. Actually, I've been busy these past 3 days escorting the third Princess Silver to the capital. But this explanation also serves to account for my whereabouts. Master Su Qing's reputation was renowned far and wide. When Xia Yingxian realized there was hope for his illness, his expression immediately changed, and seeing me, weary from my long journey, he felt a little more guilty toward me. Only Su Qingning turned her face away, muttering under her breath, "What a bunch of bullshit. He's probably just some self-proclaimed master out to make a name for himself and scam people out of their money." Xia Yingxian, preoccupied with his own illness, couldn't be bothered with Su Qingning, so he quickly sent for Master Su Qing. Master Su Qing took the patient's pulse briefly and immediately identified the cause of the illness and the necessary medication. "Sir, your illness is caused by an evil spirit. Medicine is of secondary importance. To dispel the spirit, we must use the blood of a close relative as a catalyst." I immediately went along with it, saying, "A close relative, me daughter, Yingxue, is indeed your husband's close relative, and her blood would be perfect as an ingredient for the medicine." No sooner had the words left his mouth than Su Qingning let out a cry of indignation. "Yingxue is so young, how can you use her blood as an ingredient in the medicine? If you hurt the child, how could you ever live with yourself?" Su Qing quickly waved his hand. "It's no big deal, just a single drop of blood is enough." I chimed in, "That's right, Qingning. It only takes a single drop of blood. I am sure Yingxue would be willing to ease her father's worries." But Su Qingning was still not satisfied. "That's easy for you to say since you didn't give birth to him. Of course you don't care." Xia Yingshuan's expression changed instantly. "Qingning, what nonsense are you talking about? Yingxue is, of course, the lady's own daughter. The lady loves her dearly." Hearing Xia Yingxian speak in such a sharp and stern tone, Su Qingning finally realized she had said the wrong thing and quickly changed her demeanor. "Please don't be upset, sister-in-law. Qingning has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She was just worried about her niece, which is why she said the wrong thing." I gave a faint smile to show I didn't hold it against her, and Su Qingning, realizing she had spoken out of turn, didn't dare say anything more. Xia Yingxian was more concerned for his own life than for his daughter's, so the decision to have Xia Yingxue draw blood for the medicine was settled. The ingredients were quickly gathered. All that was missing was a drop of Xia Yingshue's blood. On the day of the blood draw, Qiuhe held Zhaodi's hand as they watched from the sidelines, their hearts pounding with fear. As for Su Qingning, she had already been unhappy about Xia Yingxue taking her blood, and now she was even more distraught. When she saw Qiuhe dragging along a disfigured, ugly child, she kicked Zhaodi to the ground in a fit of rage. Qiuhe didn't dare say anything, so she could only take the sobbing Zhaodi by the hand and step back behind the crowd. Xia Yingxian had taken the medicine some time ago and, full of hope that he would recover, waited for a long time. But the medicine still showed no sign of taking effect. The sparkle in his eyes slowly faded, and a hint of resentment crept into his gaze as he looked at me. Seeing that the medicine wasn't working, Su Qingning pressed her advantage even further. "You're something, Do Qinghe. I could tell all along that you didn't truly love my cousin. Back then, you married him just to get your hands on the family fortune. And now that you've got it, you're trying to kill him on purpose so you can live the good life, aren't you? And you went and found some quack to do this blood and medicine nonsense. Now that the blood's been drawn, my cousin still hasn't recovered. Are you trying to hurt him on purpose?" Su Qingning ignored Su Qingning, took Xiang Xuan's wrist, and checked his pulse once more. "That doesn't make sense. The herbs are fine. If that's the case, the problem must lie with the catalyst, which must come from a close relative. Unless, of course, Miss Xue isn't actually young Master Xie's daughter." Upon hearing Su Qing's words, Xiu He, standing nearby, broke out in a cold sweat, while Su Qingning was beside herself with rage. "What are you talking about? I don't even know if this child is my cousin's biological child. This child is mine." Seeing Xia Yingxian repeatedly giving her meaningful glances, the furious Su Qingning finally calmed down. "I mean, I was at the mansion the day my cousin's wife gave birth. So this child must be my cousin's." Su Qing clasped his hands together. "Amitabha Buddha. As a monk, I never lie. This medicine is absolutely fine. Since you, lay devotee, have taken the medicine and still show no signs of improvement, the only possibility is that there's a problem with the medicinal adjuvant. There's a way to find out whether Miss Xue is young Master Xie's daughter. All we need to do is have young Master Xie and Miss Xue perform a blood test to verify their parentage." Xue grew older and older, but her features bore no resemblance to either Xia Yingxian or Su Qingning, and Xia Yingxian had long been puzzled by this. Besides, it involved a blood test between him and Xia Yingxue to determine their biological relationship. If he were Yingxue's father, this method could have been used to keep it hidden from me. To clear up his doubts, Xia Yingxian agreed to it. Even as Su Qingning glared at him from the side, he remained unwavering in his resolve. "This blood test to determine kinship is quite simple. Just place a drop of blood from each person into a bowl filled with water. If the blood mixes, they are related. If not, they are not biologically related." The maid quickly prepared the items needed for the blood test to verify kinship. Xia Yingxue dropped a drop of blood into it first. Xia Yingxian hesitated for a moment, glanced at me and then at Su Qingning, and finally made up his mind. He pricked his finger with a needle and dropped a drop of blood into it. Seeing that Xia Yingxian had actually dripped some of his own blood into it, Su Qingning was so angry that she began to sob quietly, while Xiu He was so frightened she nearly fainted. But after waiting for a moment, their blood did not merge. This time, it was Su Qingning who was left speechless. Before she could react, I immediately dropped to my knees and burst into tears. "My husband, you must believe that I am completely faithful to you. How could Yingxue possibly not be your daughter? I don't believe it, I just don't believe it." Then, while everyone wasn't looking, I quickly pricked my finger and let a drop of my blood fall into it. But after waiting a moment, my blood didn't mix with the others. How could that be? Yingxue isn't my daughter after all. Then where is my child? Where is my child? Hearing my cries, Xia Yingxian stared blankly at Su Qingning, his face filled with doubt. When Su Qingning saw the look on Xia Yingxuan's face, she was terrified inside. But she kept a calm facade. She suddenly knocked over the bowl of water. "This blood testing method must be a hoax. Get another bowl of water and hand me the lancet. Me blood definitely won't mix with Yingxue's either." I'd been waiting for her to say just that. So I quickly handed the bloodletting needle to Su Qingning. While everyone was off guard, I lightly ran my fingernail dipped in alum across the water the maid had just brought. Su Qingning pretended to be calm as she took the blood-drawing needle, though she was actually flustered. "If my blood isn't compatible either, it'll prove that you leprous monk, are just spouting nonsense." She let a drop of her blood fall into it, then coaxed Yingxue into letting another drop fall in. Unfortunately, this time, as soon as the blood hit the surface, the two drops mingled. Su Qingning recoiled in fear, and Xiang Xuan's gaze toward her was filled with utter desolation. This, how could they possibly blend together? Yingshu, how could she? Cousin, how could this have happened? I lunged at Su Qingning. I've treated you well enough. Where did you take my child? I'd long heard people in the mansion saying that Yingshu didn't resemble either of us, but I didn't pay it any mind. I never imagined she really wasn't my child. I gave a subtle nod to the maidservant standing nearby, and she immediately knelt and said, "Please forgive me, madam, but there is something I must report to you. In fact, Miss Yingshu's appearance is almost identical to that of a young servant named Hu Lu in my cousin's courtyard. In the past, I was afraid such words would offend your ladyship, so I dared not mention them to you. But now that this has happened, I dare not keep it from you any longer." Hu Lujing was Xiuhe's husband, so it was only natural that Xia Yingshu bore a striking resemblance to him. The reason he had been placed in Su Qingning's courtyard back then was precisely to make use of him today. Before I could say a word, Xia Yingshan spoke up and ordered the servants to summon Hu Lu. As soon as Hu Liuyi walked in, there was no doubt in anyone's mind Hu Liuyi looked exactly like Xia Yingshu. Hu Lu thought something good was in store for him, so he waited eagerly at the foot of the throne for his reward. When he heard Xia Yingshan tell him to draw a drop of blood, he was completely baffled. But since it was his master's order, he dared not disobey. So he quickly drew a drop of blood and placed it inside. The result is obvious. As biological father and daughter, their blood is certainly compatible. I held up the bowl so Xia Yingshan could see clearly. When he saw the 2 drops of blood mingling together, Xia Yingshan was so enraged that he knocked the bowl over. And Su Qingning was so frightened that she fell to her knees at Xia Yingshuan's feet. "Cousin, trust met his child is yours. You have to believe me." Xia Yingshan pinched Su Qingning's cheek. The tenderness of days past gone from his eyes. "Blood is thicker than water. This child is yours and Hu Lu's. How could you possibly pin it on me? Cousin, you know best whether this is still yours or not." We. Shut up." Xia Yingshan slapped Su Qingning across the face with such force that it severed half of her tongue. My cousin, driven by her own selfish motives, swapped the baby to cover up her affair and murdered my sister's daughter. Guards, take my cousin, her lover Hu Lu, and this illegitimate child to the county magistrate's office. While Su Qingning was still mumbling an indistinct protest, Xia Yingshan didn't even glance at her. Instead, he turned to comfort me as I pretended to be worried. "Don't worry, my dear. It was my own blindness that allowed that villain to harm our child. Rest assured, I will find out where our child is." Su Qing, who had been silent for some time, spoke up just then. "Please forgive my frankness, but while taking your pulse just now, I discovered that many years ago, Layman Xia was poisoned. This poison causes no other harm to the body, but it prevents a man from having children." Xia Yingshan turned ashen and collapsed onto the bed. Just then, the servants who had been sent to search Su Qingning's courtyard returned, bringing with them the medicinal residue I had buried in her courtyard many years ago. After Su Qing examined it, it was confirmed that it was this very medicine that had caused Xia Yingshan to be unable to have children. Su Qingning was still shaking her head in her own defense, but the look in Xia Yingshuan's eyes was already filled with murderous intent. "You venomous woman. Hurry up and take her to the magistrate's office. Ask the magistrate to impose the harshest punishment and to find out what has become of my child." The servants immediately dragged Su Qingning and the other 2 to the magistrate's office. But since my child had already passed away, they naturally couldn't find out anything about his whereabouts. That evening, news came from the county magistrate's office that Su Qingning and his 2 companions had all died in prison. Su Qingning's death was particularly gruesome. He was stabbed more than a dozen times before he died, the work of Xia Yingshan. After this incident, Xiuhe didn't dare stay at the Dou residence any longer, so she asked to resign that very night. And I granted her request. Little did anyone know that she was ambushed and stabbed to death that very night. Her death was identical to that of Su Qingning and the other 2. This was yet another of Xia Yingshuan's deeds. Unfortunately, the child Zhaodi had vanished without a trace. I never expected Xia Yingshan to be capable of pulling off such moves while bedridden. so I ordered my men that very night to increase his dosage. At that point, Xia Yingxian was completely incapacitated. He could only lie in bed, opening and closing his eyes, unable even to speak. I've made sure everyone in your household keeps their mouths shut, so word of this hasn't gotten out. After successfully handling several important matters for the third prince, the consort Shu finally sent word that she wished to see me. I knew this was a sign that I was about to be promoted, so I quickly packed my bags and headed for the capital. The majesty of the Forbidden City was beyond my imagination. Posing as a member of the consort Shu's household, I followed the eunuch to her palace. Her Royal Highness the consort Shu truly lives up to her name. She is both stunningly beautiful and fiercely determined, which is precisely why she was able to raise the third prince. A true gem among men. She was also surprised by me, seeing how mature you are in handling matters. I thought you must be quite old, but I never expected you to be a young girl, not even 20 years old. That's right. If you count my years, I've only just turned 19, but when you take into account my past and present lives, I'm really just an elderly woman, aren't I? There are undercurrents swirling in the struggle for the throne. As a young woman involved in this, you must have some hidden agenda. Tell me, what do you want once this is over? Only then can I feel comfortable relying on you. The day had finally arrived, so I quickly and earnestly kowtowed 3 times to the consort. Your Highness, the consort Shu, please understand, though I am but a woman, my abilities are no less than those of a man. Yet, because of my gender, I had no choice but to marry into a family to protect my family's estate. This is, in fact, a matter of common sense among the people, since women are not permitted to establish their own households. The commoner's daughters earnestly implore your majesty to issue an imperial edict once this matter is settled, allowing all women throughout the realm to establish their own households and preserve their family estates without having to marry into a man's family. The consort Shu was very surprised by my request, but in the next moment, she seemed to understand completely. What you've asked for is very good. I grant your request. Now, put your mind at ease and serve me and the third prince. Having received the consort Shu's approval, I was so moved that I kowtowed to her 3 more times. Then I told the consort Shu in advance about some of the events that had occurred in my previous life, and asked her to keep an eye on the eunuch in His Majesty's service who had been bribed by the second prince in my previous life. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Seeing that he could no longer keep the third prince in check, the second prince watched as the third prince, driven to desperation, actually raised an army and plotted a rebellion. The third prince had long anticipated the second prince's plot and, in a single stroke, overthrew the second prince, who had been plotting rebellion. Afterward, the third prince was named Crown Prince. 2 years later, His Majesty passed away, and the third prince ascended the throne as emperor, elevating the consort Shu to the rank of Empress Dowager. And the Empress Dowager did not forget the promise she had made to me all those years ago. She issued an imperial edict allowing all women in the realm to establish their own households, so I no longer had to worry about my family's estate being divided up among my clan. To reward me for my service to the emperor, the Empress Dowager ordered that I be granted the title of Lady of the Realm. I love children, but unfortunately, Xia Yingxian was never blessed with children in his lifetime. After settling this matter, I petitioned the Empress Dowager to allow my family, the Dou clan, to fund the construction of numerous orphanages throughout the capital to take in homeless children. One day, as I was busy balancing the books, a servant suddenly came in to inform me that a young woman had come to the house claiming to be my daughter. I don't have any children. The only child was killed by Xia Yingxian, but the woman insisted she was my daughter. So out of curiosity, I went out for a while. At first glance, I knew she was that Zhaodi who had disappeared all those years ago. Nearly 16 years have passed, and the scars on her face have faded slightly. The look in her eyes and the shape of her brows are the spitting image of Xia Yingxian. As soon as she saw me, Zhaodi rushed toward me, crying, "Mother, I'm your daughter. I've missed you so much. Do you have any idea how much I've suffered all these years?" Zhaodi was crying her eyes out, but I remained unmoved. Instead, I pried her fingers apart one by one, Stop pretending. Xia Yingxue. You're back too, aren't you? In this lifetime, Zhao Di had absolutely no way of knowing about her connection to the Dou family. How could she possibly have claimed right off the bat that she was my daughter? Seeing that I looked completely calm, Xia Yingxue didn't bother crying anymore. So mother's back, too. That's truly wonderful. You have no idea how much I've suffered all these years. You love me so much, please take me back as your daughter right away. Xia Yingxue. It wasn't enough that you got me killed, now you actually have the nerve to show up at my door asking to be recognized as family. You really aren't afraid of dying, are you? Xia Yingxue blinked and said with an innocent look on her face. Mother. You died of your own illness, what does that have to do with me? Besides, even if I'm not your biological daughter, you've raised me for so many years. Surely we've developed some bond. Since your biological child is dead anyway, why not formally adopt me? Wouldn't it be perfect for me to take care of you and father in your old age? I heard you know a certain Master Suching. It would be perfect to ask him to treat my daughter's facial scar. The new emperor is currently holding a beauty pageant, who knows? Once her face is healed, she might even enter the palace and become empress. This kid is truly beyond reason. In my fury, I forced a laugh. Aren't you supposed to take care of your father in his old age? Come with me. Xia Yingxue, not knowing what was going on, followed me to the backyard, where Xia Yingxian had now been placed. He was going through the same ordeal I had endured back then, on several occasions when he was on the verge of death. I had my servants force-feed him medicine to keep him alive. I was determined to make him suffer every bit of this world's torment. When Xia Yingxue saw that creature half-man, half-dog cowering in the corner, she recoiled in fear. But I grabbed her hand tightly and yanked her inside. If you're not going to honor your father, well, that's your father, go on and honor him. Xia Yingxue waved her hands repeatedly and started to walk out. But I stopped her. It's not over yet. You still want to enter the palace, don't you? But in your previous life, you were with the second prince. The second prince plotted a rebellion, but the new emperor, Rin Shan, couldn't bring himself to kill his own brother, so he had him imprisoned in a cold, desolate prison at the border. A day as husband and wife brings 100 days of gratitude. You might as well go over there and keep him company, and don't forget to take your father with you. You still have to take care of him in his old age. Xia Yingxue knelt down, crying, and begged me. I was wrong, Mother. If I go to that bitterly cold place, I'll surely have no way to survive. Her cries moved me not in the least. I waved my hand and ordered the servants to take Xia Yingxue and Xia Yingxian to the border, and I never looked back. I still have a lot of work to do. And these unworthy people and unworthy matters aren't worth my time. I won't even turn around to look back at them. That's the end of the story. Thank you all for sticking with me. See you in the next post.